confirm if I hear me. So it's raining cats and dogs here in this part of Lagos. I'm having a little bit of background noise. Okay. Okay, favor, please started. Okay, please, first of all, I want to thank for it's been raining cats and dogs out there, but I do hope that we can get today at the speakers, policymakers, industry leaders, their partners and participants beyond. My name is Arishukola Mutala, and on behalf of the versus trade reality. So over the we've seen on paper that okay, sorry, excuse me. I think I'll just try a bit to show you on my. Yeah, so we have some of these market access initiatives in export tariffs, expansion in trade. The reality and apparel sector, export growth has not really kept pace with trade agreements. We have seen of global textile and apparel trade. Okay, so if Africa has more market access than before, why are we still exporting? Why are our exports still struggling to scale of our conversations today? For us, over the past few months, this morning webinar we'll be holding, we have built several dimensions of Africa's competitiveness challenge. In March, of global city trade and African exporters. In April, requirement for value chains and conversations and to seek African city exporters can better leverage increased value. At the Africa City Center, our commitment remains to provide data-driven trade intelligence and evidence-based dialogue that supports informed decision-making across the cotton, textile, and apparel sector. Because at the end of the day, we have seen that the future of Africa City export African business agreements into competitive. With that, we'll begin session. We network glitch world in Lagos particularly. So before I pass over the mic to my please just take note of the following ground rules for this session. So when you join, please mute yourself. Use the Q&A chat to drop your at the end of the second session, where we'll be having some interactive with our first speaker. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you. Favor.
Yes, am I going to start the presentation?
So I'll be introducing our first speaker, Valerada. She is a trade and export supporting governments, trade institutions on exports and institutional strengthening. She has on programs with USAID, UNIDO, and European Union, helping to design export ecosystems and improve market readiness across multiple sectors. Currently serves as a board member of Egypt Cotton Association. At the webinar today, she will be speaking on market access versus market reality, where the expected export outcome, preferredness, and exports in Africa cotton, textile, and apparel sector. Over to you, Ms. Dayarada.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Textile and Apparel Center for the kind invitation, and for everyone who's attending with us today. Would you share my?
Yeah, you can go ahead and share, ma'am.
I share it? I share from my side, or you're sharing?
You can share it, ma'am.
Can you see it now? Hello? Can you see my presentation now?
Yes, we did before, but now it disappeared.
No, we can't.
Now.
Oh,
you can see it.
It appeared and vanished again. So you.
Okay, let me do it again.
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Is it clear now? Okay, super. So, having all these active trade agreements is not even export potential. And we want to discuss, is it a problem of like how many trade agreements are active? Or you want to say something?
Yes, please, can you put your slide on the center more? Thank you.
Now?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you. It's perfect.
Super. Okay. So we are discussing today is it enough that we have like enough or a big number in the African continent? And why, despite all that, we don't have an excellent export performance to match this number of. Here appears from the fact that despite these trade agreements, exports from Africa is less than 2%. Despite the AGOA, the European trade agreements with Africa, 2%, less than 20% of the global textile and apparel exports that are coming from Africa. Despite of capacity didn't match the signed outpay our capacity with signing several trade agreement. And speak of capacity here, I'm speaking of the production capacity continent. Many of the African raw cotton, higher value products, and the and deficit. Despite in the global trade scene seems flat, style has been old in the African industry. Market access we have a closed room, but one who negotiate for any trade agreement, and the country is entitled to send its product, but reduced or zero tariffs like those under the AGOA or the European Preferential Trade FTA doesn't necessarily mean that we have a market at a free of that tariff. And when we of deals that are made by the companies in the African continents, there is no proper match. It seems more like it exists on paper. Why is that? Because you can study and negotiate the side. The market readiness in any country of the African continent is an earned capability, a capability that would take decades to build the production capacity of infrastructure, internet connection that's not cutting, the energy sources that are stable, and companies can put the right cost to their products. And then you start measure the real readiness, but by the number of shipments from the same company or the same country, the customer, and that takes really years to build and to invest in. The balance is not proper. So we could decide and say like, okay, we have better opportunity, but because compliance rules, using AI in everything now in trade, in global trade, this discrepancy between the market about that, let's go. It gave dozens of would find a country like Kenya benefit of the UA, and apparel export from $500 million a year by the middle of 2020. Why? And also it's linked to lots of employees, that the apparel industry is a very labor industry. For our countries, it's crucial for us to build this industry. Other countries didn't invest in the same capacity building that Kenya did. So how they benefited from the agreement is quite different than other countries, and this is a lesson for us to know, like, okay, you can sign whatever agreements you want, but if you don't have the matching capacity to benefit from this agreement, then you have nothing. Trade agreement, but your policy inside the country to build the industry, the production capability, how the institution help companies build buyer relationship, you can say then that you can capture the opportunity that's established. It's a different story. I'll do a quick industrial zone agreement between Egypt and the States. And though we have these agreements for decades, not all companies has benefited from it, and Egypt's export to the US is less of US apparel products. So that's a telling story. Rule constraint. Actually, it's both. It's the same rule that protects regional value, also locks the producers them. Of cotton, yarn, and fabric, upstream, midstream production at home, it can build a defensible, harder to replicate value chain over the time. But as a constraint, it requires sometimes regional inputs that are not there. Do we have the proper capacity to benefit from this rule of origin? Stage transformation, free exporters. Compliance and certification costs, it's a hefty cost for a small producer, as we all support or subsidy. Enterprise cannot cover these costs. Who is into experts and who doesn't? All the countries on the screen now, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Morocco, and have a or something in common despite in different have different policies. That they built enough capacity that's accelerated by the preferential trade agreements. So we built this, the signed agreement export in significant volumes. So for Bangladesh, they scaled their garment manufacturing capacity ahead of demand. The preferential access compliance infrastructure that buyers land source the EU and the economic preferential agreements terms alongside for Turkey, they did it with an integrated inside their country. As you all know, Turkey has a very strong industry with an from the yarn making till the finished product. Is saying can't Miss Faber? Shall I go on, or someone has a? Hello? Okay.
Yeah, you can go on.
What we can simplify at the end is like readiness has two layers. You have the country level layer and the company level layer. A country's export performance is simply the sum of its company's readiness. And this is a core idea in my presentation today. When we say a country is doing this or that, it's actually the sum of these are doing. So you cannot separate the two. You cannot be ready on a country level and not company level. And you so for the company level, you have the industrial capacity. Sometimes you need the government to go with in financing infrastructure in some heavy investment of the supply chain, like finishing and the compliance and traceability systems the buyers are expecting as a certification audits. You have to have companies and associations helping companies to do that. Logistics and corridor performance, ports, freight, inland are things that export more, or the manufacturers export more and benefit of the trade agreement. And the country can do have human resources that are ready with to run a consistent audited production to respond properly to if you don't have proper management, cash flow, you have the work discipline, marketing and buyer relationships, attending trade fairs, trade missions, keeping a proper relation with the customer, your product and quality system to achieve the request by the buyer, then no kind of trade agreement. The real question here, or the real challenge, 90% of the African business are SMEs. And since they are SMEs, then there is a small minority of the African companies that are really actively exporting. And the rest is manufacturers, but they are not exporting. So unless we put the right systems, policies that help those 90% grow the industrial base, making their industry competitive enough to compete in global markets, then we will keep trying to pull the tip of the pyramid, trying to increase exports from the same number of companies without actually putting a proper base to do a paradigm shift or jump in the exports of the African continent. So from someone like me who spent like a decade in the export councils, I moved around the table in different positions in the export ecosystem. I was working in private sector companies, in trade support institutions, in development programs like the USA ID before its termination, and now the Cotton Egypt Association and my own company in the apparel sector. It's like you have a 360 view, and what I can tell you that buyers choose sourcing from destination for different reasons. First, yes, the free trade agreement is a great thing. It's a primary filter. If they know that they don't have to, the importer that doesn't have to pay tariffs for getting your product. But if the company or the companies of the country are not reliable, consistent, compliant, then the tariff line is rarely the reason for the decision to import from that countries. So across the years of working differently, directly with exporters and in donor-funded programs, I can say a shipment delayed once can really decide if they think that exporters of this country are reliable or not. So it's not a matter only of trade agreement. There is no single exporter, what I can say, can close this gap alone. We have to integrate these fragmented regional value chains. We have to have proper special economic zones and industrial clusters to work together and concentrate the infrastructures and the skills instead of having them fragmented the way they are right now. We have to have the proper policies and capacity builders to move these trade agreements that are negotiated in years to be something that really pushes the exports from the African continent. What market readiness requires that access doesn't guarantee? Buyers now decide if the market access on their own terms, like reliability, as I said, delivery performance, compliance, sustainability, social compliance, traceability, and buyer-specific standards from organic and recycled content certification, such as BSCI, SMETA, increasingly function as a second layer of the market access. So your tariff line is the first layer, and then you get into so many details and market access requirements now. Production flexibility, financing built for export cash flow cycles. This is very, very important that when we sign a trade agreement for the benefit of our continent, our countries, there should be backed by a proper development financial institution that can help and push, especially SMEs, to benefit from this agreement. Firm level capability, HR, marketing, and product, all these things, the trade support institutions in the country can help develop. Finally, you have the shifts that we're making. You have policymakers, they should move from negotiating access to financing readiness, from reacting to compliance to anticipating it. It's, you just don't stay in your factory or leave your companies without proper direction about what are the new regulations, how they should be ready. They don't wait till they receive an order and then they run around and try to be compliant. From awareness building to capacity building, very, very important, and it's a big role for all the research center and the trade support institutions. So finally, I would say none of this work without the agreement themselves. I understand that, and they are very important, but they are the catalyst, the initiator, but not the deal breaker. And we want to move from measuring how many trade agreements we signed to how many buyers that trust us to be the sourcing destination in Africa. Thank you so much for listening and for your time.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dalia. Thank you so much. That was a very analytical and highly practical presentation. Okay, so please confirm that I'm audible. You can hear me?
Yes. Perfectly, thank you.
Okay, if you can hear me, John. Okay, yes. So I just need 2 or 3 thumbs up to show that you can hear me. I need a signal. Okay, perfect. Perfect. I think I've got that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, so thank you, Dalia. So for me, this presentation, it challenges us, okay? We've always had the assumption that expanding market access will automatically lead to increased exports. But in this presentation, we have seen that market readiness is actually much more important than market access. From the presentation, we learned that from case studies of some countries that have actually benefited and implemented the AGOA initiative much more properly. It was a case of investing in industrial growth, investing in capacity building for the industry within the country. And so trade access and the preferential trade agreements simply accelerated some of those policies that have been implemented. And so that is more or less like the way we could start thinking about how to get how to make the most of all of these trade agreements that we are talking about. Let me just quickly highlight a few key points from the presentation. I mean, there were so many important points on there, but I just want to talk about some of the things that really jump out to me. And the first one is that the trade agreements actually create opportunities, but they do not guarantee outcomes. Okay, and that was very much illustrated when we made the performance under AGOA. We saw that a country like Kenya has actually done very well with AGOA, and it's one of the countries who are under the same trade agreement. You see that there are some when we go into the deep down into the performance detail for each country, then you begin to make some of those analytical comparisons, and then you see that Kenya actually did very much well with AGOA. Also, we saw that the readiness that we are talking about is in two dimensions, and that is actually very important for me as well. We are talking about readiness in terms of at the level of the country, and also at the level of the companies, the firms. Okay, and for me, this is particularly important because when we consider that SMEs, constitute the overwhelming majority of businesses across Africa, then we then begin to understand the scale of how poor we are doing when it comes to making the most of this trade agreement. Because at the end of the day, you see that from the analysis we saw, 90% of SMEs, they are the majority here in Africa who do these businesses. But how many of them do we actually even have a figure of that 90% who are able to maximize the benefits of AGOA and the rest of the trade agreements? Finally, I also want to touch on this very important point. So at the end of the day, trade agreement aside, buyers themselves aside. So what we have seen now is that buyers themselves, they are more or less like the champions of the trade agreement. They are more or less like the champions that drive the trade agreement. They are more or less like the ones that drive the readiness. So whether you have a functioning trade agreement or not, the relationship that you have with the buyer is actually much more critical when you are going into this business transactions. So a buyer would come now and they are driving reliability, they are driving consistency, they are driving delivery performance, compliance. And so at the end of the day, the buyer confidence when we go into this into this relationship are actually much more effective. So at the end of the day, when we put all of these things together, we then begin to see that a unified coordination across the private and public sector will help us to get to where we are going regarding making our market readiness keep up with the pace of the market access that we have enjoyed and secured so far. So this leaves us with a powerful reflection, and I want to mention it, and that is the fact that we must shift our focus now to equipping some of these firms, majority that we have mentioned, the SMEs, equipping them to leverage the many trade agreements that have been signed already, and rather than working on getting more trade agreements. Thank you so much once again for that excellent presentation, Ms. Dalia. We really appreciate you. Before we go into the next session, I also want to once again encourage every single one of us that on the chat box over there, please utilize it to drop in your questions. We believe that as the conversations are going, you have some of these questions that are popping up in your head. Please put them down in that Q&A chat box, and we'll have about half an hour to go through as many questions as we can. Thank you so much once again. Favor, over to you now to please introduce our second speaker. Thank you. Yes, I can hear you, Matthew. Thank you. Okay, you have to do this. Thank you. Nuran, we can hear you.
Yes, please. Please let me know if you can hear me. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so please 1 second to share my presentation. 1 second, please.
It's frozen. We can't hear her. It's frozen. We can't hear her.
Yes, she is about to share her presentation. Just
Okay.
hold on a bit. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So
Yes.
do we?
It's ready
Nuran,
now. It's
have you
ready
been
now.
able to
I will
share
share
your?
it. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, thanks so much for your invitation to be speaker at this webinar, and thanks Dr. Dalia for the valuable and insightful session. Now, in today's session, I will cover 4 main points, starting with the performance over for the African textile value chain. And then we will focus on the challenges and the strategic priorities. Then I will shed the light on the Egypt as a case study and the Egyptian National Textile Mega Project as an industrial transformation model. And finally, we will share and discuss a recommended intervention for fully integration in the African textile industry revival. So to understand how Africa can strengthen its textile industry, we first need to understand how value is created along the global textile value chain and why much of that value is currently captured outside the continent. So for decades, especially between the 60s, sorry. Yes, so for decades, especially between the 60s and 70s, many African countries had vertically integrated textile industries with domestic spinning, weaving, and garment manufacturing.
Sorry, ma'am. Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, please, can you put your presentation on presenter's mode? Thank you.
Sorry. Yes?
Yes, better
Yes,
now.
okay. Okay, so for decades, the textile industry in Africa were vertically integrated with domestic spinning, weaving, and garment manufacturing, supplying both the local and export markets. But over the past 4 decades, especially, thousands of textile mills across Africa either closed or significantly reduced their operation skills resulting in a sharp decline in spinning weaving activities. So the continent increasingly became a net exporter for the raw cotton rather than manufacturing textile products. At the same time, Asia followed the opposite trajectory. Countries such as China, India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Pakistan, they invested continuously across the entire value chain, from spinning and weaving to finishing, and also they invested highly in the logistics, the infrastructure, and also in the global brand integration. So this industrial transformation enabled Asia to retain most of the valuable generated from cotton, while Africa exported the raw fiber and imported back higher value yarns, fabrics, and finished garments. So while preferential trade agreements have reduced the tariff barriers, African cotton, textile, and apparel exporters continue to face high trade costs created by the non-tariff barriers. So in many cases, delays, compliance costs, and logistics inefficiency, and also the production constraints have a greater impact on the export competitiveness than tariffs themselves. Studies also estimate that non-tariff measures can generate trade costs that exceeds the impact of tariffs. Okay, so what is Africa's position in the global textile value chain? We can see that Africa currently remains a marginal player in the global textile manufacturing network. And this table shows the share of Africa compared to Asia in the global textile value chain. So we can see that Africa textile value chain participation is only about 5% of Asia, and we can see that there is a limited participation in the global value chain. So although Africa participates in the global textile trade, its total textile global value chain participation is only around 5% of Asia, highlighting the continent's limited role in the integrated textile manufacturing. We can also conclude the low regional integration. So only 6.6% of Africa textile intermediate value is traded within the continent, indicating that regional sourcing of yarn, fabrics, and other textile inputs remained very limited. Okay, and then the value addition occurred. Yes.
Hello, ma. Yeah, your slide is not moving, and
Okay,
it's not on
sorry.
presenter's mode yet.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so the value addition occurs outside Africa. So African textile inputs are largely exported for processing abroad. Developed economies account for 85.4% of exports derived from African textile intermediate value, while African remains only 1.8%, demonstrating the substantial value leakage. Okay, so in this table, we summarize why Asia rise and the challenges of Africa that resulted in declining the overall performance and participation of African textile. So if we look at the Asian side, we can see that they invested in long-term industrial policies, continuous investment in modern spinning and weaving mills, competitive energy and logistics infrastructure.
Excuse me, Chair, the slides are not moving. We're only seeing how Africa lost its textile manufacturing base.
Okay, so
Okay, so yes, I think so that we do not interrupt Nora in her presentation. Okay, so we would possibly check with the presenters if the presentation can be, the slides can be shared with participants after this conversation. Okay.
I think that'll be fine. Thank you. Let her continue, please.
Okay. Thank you. Nuran, please go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to reshare the presentation again. Sorry.
Now it moved. We can see a different slide now.
Okay.
Yes, this is the slide that I'm presenting. Okay.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
So again, what is the main factors behind Asia's success? As we said, the long-term industrial policies, the large investment in the modern spinning and weaving mills, the competitive energy and logistics infrastructure, strong integration between cotton, textile, and apparel sectors, the large-scale manufacturing clusters, export-oriented manufacturing ecosystem, attraction of foreign direct investment. And the opposite is the case in Africa. We can see weak industrial continuity, aging and underutilized manufacturing assets, high production and transport costs, fragmented regional value chains, small and disconnected production bases, dependence on raw cotton export, limited investment in downstream processing. So while these challenges are significant. They are not invisible. Around the world, leading textile producing countries have strengthened their industries by investing in technology, quality standard, integrated supply chains, and supportive industrial policies. This brings us to the second part, which is the key drivers of competitive textile industry. Okay, so first of all, the custom procedures, border delays, and administrative burdens. We can see that a key challenge will be the multiple border inspection points and the duplicated documentation, the manual customs procedures in several countries, the inconsistent implementation of regulation, long cargo clearance times, unpredictable informal costs. This have a negative impact on the textile sector. So the textiles and apparel operate on strict production calendars. So border delays lead to missed delivery windows, the air freight substitution, and this will result in higher costs, the contract penalties, and loss of buyer confidence. So we can see that the global fashion increasingly works under the fast fashion and near season replenishment model. So reliability often matters more than production cost in most of the cases, especially for the high recognition brands. Okay, the second challenge is the export readiness and the competitiveness. So market access doesn't automatically create export capability. Export readiness include the firm capability. So the factory should be assessed according to this consistent quality, on-time delivery, technical documentation, the packaging and labeling, production planning, professional export management, okay, and also the institutional capabilities, the ecosystem in the country or the region. So we can see to how extent these factories got export promotion support, trade information, testing laboratories, certification, services, and skilled development. So many SMEs are production ready, but not export ready. Okay, third challenge is the digital trade and the supply chain transparency. So today's buyers demand visibility across the entire supply chain. So digital capabilities include electronic certificates, digital customs documentation, real-time shipment tracking, ERP system, product traceability, and most of the African factories operating, they lack most of these new technologies. So emerging buyer expectations, and now buyers are increasingly asked where was the cotton grown, who produced the garment. They ask for different certificates. Okay, the fourth challenge is the sustainability compliance and the ITRC. So sustainability has become a market access requirement than a marketing advantage. Global buyers increasingly require compliance with environmental standard, label standard, human rights, carbon reporting, chemical management, circular economy. So why it matters? Because international brands seek to reduce supply chain risks while meeting regulatory requirements and consumer expectation. So failure to comply increasingly exclude suppliers from preferred sourcing list. Okay. In this slide, these are some of the well-known and high-demanded certifications, especially in European markets for textile. So now we can see that they are shifting from like an optional certificate. Now they are mandatory in most of the countries. For example, the Ecotex certificate, the BCI, which is the Better Cotton Initiative. Now these certificates are become a mandatory certificate more than an optional that just give more credibility about the exporter. So certified manufacturer typically enjoy greater buyer confidence, improved traceability, and a stronger ESG credential. And the sustainability certification support compliance with emerging international regulation and evolving sourcing. Okay, and the production scale and productivity. Now we can see that many African manufacturers face a structural constraint in terms of the scale. So small production volumes, limited economies of scale, and fragmented suppliers. This affect the productivity levels. So we can see outdated machinery, energy costs, skills shortage, low automation, limited industrial upgrading. And the consequences are mainly the higher unit cost, lower competitiveness, and difficulty securing large international contracts. So some of the emerging technologies in the textile manufacturing that now most of the Asian factories are adopting, and also we can rarely find these technologies in most of the African factories. So leading global textile manufacturers are increasingly adopting advanced sustainable technologies to improve resource efficiency, reduce environmental impact, and enhance operational competitiveness. So, for example, we have the zero liquid discharge system in the dyeing and printing facilities, where all wastewater is purified and recycled. This approach is now adopted by many of the textile and dyeing houses in Asian countries and Europe also. But we can rarely find similar African factories that adopt this approach. And also they are now focused on less water and energy consumption through smaller carbon footprint and eco-friendly nitrogen technology. Also the adoption of solar thermal systems, and finally less solid waste, automatic dosing units for chemicals. So these are examples of the new technologies that textile manufacturing are now adopting globally, but due to the decline in the African textile industry, we are away from these technologies, and as a result, our products don't have the high demand compared with those from the Asian market. Okay, so
Noran.
Okay, I will
Yes.
reflect on the Egypt's textile industry. And
hello, Noran, can you hear me?
yes.
Yes. So let's quickly take the recommendations. Okay. I believe you have the last section is the recommendations. The time is fast spent, so let's quickly just take the recommendations while you bring the presentation to a close. Thank you.
Okay, I will go quickly for this section, and then we will discuss the recommendation, as I wanted to be in the discussion session. But I wanted to reflect on the case of Egypt because it's very important. Because for decades we were exporting 80% of the Egyptian cotton production is exported as a raw cotton. So most exports are destined for textile manufacturing countries like India, China, and Pakistan. And you can see in this graph how the top importer of the Egyptian raw cotton. So these countries capture much of the downstream value through spinning, weaving, and apparel manufacturing. And this value leakage become one of the main drivers behind the Egypt's national textile mega project. So, and this graph highlights the value we lose along the textile value chain. So we only export the cotton in its raw case. So we only benefit from 20%, 25%, sorry, 20% of the value added, and we lose nearly 75 to 80% from the potential value. So we lost the value in the fiber preparation, spinning, weaving, dyeing, and apparel manufacturing. Several challenges related to production operation, including. Sorry. Okay. So the foundation of Egypt textile transformation. Okay, so we have the Cotton and the Textile Industries Holding Company. It's the backbone of Egypt's upstream textile industry, accounting for almost 50% of spinning capacity and 60% of weaving capacity. So the spinning and weaving are mainly belongs to the public sector in Egypt, while the private sector dominates the downstream manufacturing, producing around 90% of the ready-made garments. So, however, decades of underinvestment left many state-owned mills operating below capacity. And this led to the launch of a comprehensive modernization program in 2017. So Egypt's national textile mega project strategy and key pillars, they focused mainly on to achieve three main targets: securing a local demand for the Egyptian cotton fiber beside international textile industry, fulfillment of the local demand of home textile and clothing products, and import substitution. And to achieve this, they focused on three main pillars, and this will be reflected on the recommended interventions for the whole Africa. So they focused on restructuring to make stronger entities through the rehabilitation of existing ones, new infrastructure and machinery, and attracting foreign direct investment. And if we can see the early results of the Egypt textile transformation, now we can see the modernization of spinning, weaving, and finishing facilities across the state-owned textile companies, increased investor confidence, with global manufacturing expanding operation in Egypt through the new textile and garment investment. Now we can see prestigious denim mills from India will invest in Egypt, and also numerous foreign textile investment from China, Turkey, South Korea, Germany, Greece, and Pakistan. They are now launching projects in different areas of Egypt. So stronger positioning as a regional manufacturing and sourcing hub, leveraging the premium Egyptian cotton, competitiveness, lead time, and preferential trade agreements.
Okay, thank you, Noran. So I'll be surprised if you actually don't take the time to reflect on the textile mega projects in Egypt. I'll really be surprised if you didn't do that. But I think the time is actually not on our side, and I am also supposed to do a quick synopsis of your presentation, but I think I'll pass that on so that we can utilize our time much more effectively. So we will be going into the Q&A session in a moment. But before we do so, so first of all, I want to quickly reflect on some of the things that I've been seeing in the chat box. And the key important question has been if the presentation will be available to share with the participants, and that's the answer to that question is actually with the speaker. So if they give us the go ahead, of course we would share it with everyone here today. So I'm putting the question out to both Dalia and Noran. So are you giving us the go ahead to share your presentation notes with the audience? Okay, perfect. So yeah, perfect. So basically we have that sorted. Now, how you're going to get access
to, of course, the recording was also mentioned, how you're going to get access to the recording, and then the presentation notes. We'll also share all of that before we come to the close of this session. I also saw I've forgotten the name now, and okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Namatonta, you're from Togo, and you're asking if there could be a French translation. So presently we do this in English, and but now that you have mentioned it, we'll look at how we can actually accommodate that in subsequent sessions. However, to meet your present needs, I would suggest that you use some, translation software to help you, translate some of these discussions into your desired language. And that goes for every other person who may want this presentation in a different language from English. So I think we have been able to handle that. Okay. Nura, thank you so much. I did mention earlier that I would be surprised if you didn't, take the time to highlight the success of the. Can we please have our mics muted, please? Everyone, please mute your mics. Favor, please have everyone muted. Thank you. We are having some back and forth, So thank you, Noran. Thank you so much. I do believe that while the Q&A is going on, you will still be able to reflect on some of the recommendations that that you have prepared for us. Thank you also, Dr. Dalia. It's so much of a pleasure to have both of you join us. Now we'll be going into the Q&A. And I think we're having a couple of questions here. I saw some of them earlier, so let's quickly look at those, and then we get to it. So the first one came from Chantel Strauss, okay, and Chantel is saying, so Chantel, you're gonna unmute yourself when it comes to it to let me know who you are directing this question to. But I do believe it will be to Dr. Dalia, because it was after our presentation that you dropped this question. So default, I think that will be going to Dr. Dalia. And the question is, how have these countries, so the countries that Dr. Dalia mentioned earlier, who have been able to benefit from some of these initiatives, talking about Turkey, so some countries over there. So the question is, how have these countries dealt with the digital market competition from China in terms of imports from Shein, from Temu, from Alibaba, and all of the big consumer platforms, digital platforms that are coming out of Asia, almost on a daily basis. So that's the question, Ms. Dalia. Thank you.
The question is more on the digital marketing side that's happening right now. It's a bit different from our discussion, but I can answer you. For instance, in Egypt, you have the local market now is flooded by things coming from Shein, Temu, and things like that. But again, we will go back to the same concept that I discussed earlier in my presentation, is building the production capacity of a country. Though this is happening in Egypt right now, I have to say that there is a very, very active scene now of local brands that are selling in the market, marketing their products through digital platforms as well, like Shopify and others. So there always, you cannot protect, no matter you do protective measures in a country, this is never the way. It always find a way to kill the local industry if you don't have a strong local industry. And you kindly mentioned the examples of the other countries that I spoke about. These countries had strong integrated value chain in their countries. So when this happened, you're not shaking every time that there is a threat of a new product or a new supplier or a new mode of marketing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that is actually a very important direction to that question. We actually made a publication a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about banning some imports into the country. Some countries taking up the initiative to ban imports of products where they in order to revive local industries. And then the reflection was in alignment with what you just mentioned, because at the end of the day, a total ban, okay, is at the end of the day is counterproductive to the local industry. So at the end of the day, you want to find a balance strategy where maybe you reduce your import from say 60% to 30 or maybe 20%, and then you see how you can still invest in building, in reviving the local industry. So I think I do align with the way you have answered that question.
If
Talking
you allow
about
me, I'll add a very small point as well. I was
yes.
speaking the other day with someone in the Italian luxury business of textile, and he told me something very, very nice. Speaking of like protecting or not protecting, he said like now we can't get our products to China, one of the biggest market that used to import luxury Italian products, because now they take pride in owning their own luxury Chinese brands. So it's like the market now is requiring the local brands that are made very well.
Yes, absolutely. Now, until you then have a local industry that is, that can produce for the local demand, you do not want to, totally ban, some of those imports. I think that's where we can, draw some insights from that particular question. So I see Omolara Akonji hand, but before let me also quickly take a question that was in the chat earlier, and then we'll come to you, Omolara Akonji. Please, a few moments, and then we'll get to you. And this comes from Mutar Dodo, and I would like Nura to take this particular question. So the question is, as production costs increase in other parts of the world due to various reasons that include more stringent buyer demands, I mean, you mentioned some of those, green transition and certification costs, etc. Does Africa have a competitive advantage of lower costs to become more competitive? I'll take that again. As production costs increase in other parts of the world due to various reasons, which include stringent buyer demands, green transition, certification costs to go high, does Africa have a competitive advantage, of, lower cost to become more competitive? Thank you.
Okay, so let me discuss something that we witnessed during the work on the textile project in Egypt. That before the restructure of the old factories, okay, they were exporting. They weren't not exporting. Not they were exporting, but to whom? They used to export to a low rank of importer. So and this is important thing, that we have also categories of buyers. So our low quality will be will go for low quality of buyers. Okay, so what the textile project in Egypt was targeting to attract a different categories of buyers that we didn't use to deal with. So the low cost of the African content, they may find opportunities in different countries, but they can't compete those of Asia, for example, or the European factories. So those will come in a specific category, but not in high-ranked markets or with high-ranked buyers from different countries.
Okay, yes, I missed it. I'm sorry. Yeah, so thank you, Dalia, Nora. Thank you so much for taking that. So, Fidel, I actually saw your question. I see that you're trying to direct us to the question you shared earlier. So I'll be taking your question next after Omolara Akonji. Thank you. So Omolara Akonji, you can unmute yourself now and then take your go with your and then tell us who you are directing your question to. Thank you.
Okay, the first speaker, my question is not just question, just an analysis as it were to the first speaker. When we are talking about the country readiness and the company readiness, those two layers are very, very critical, as had been explained to us. But in terms of country readiness, the country must have a policy that is quite, driven towards export, and that policy must be a policy that is not just one-stop shop kind of policy. It must be consistent. If there's no consistency in policy, you cannot, you cannot bring the company into that kind of policy. What is happening in Africa is those two layers. The countries are not, riding with the country decision is not aligned with the producer's decision. So we need to have a very strong, interrelationship between the policy of the government and the producers who are at the grassroots. So I just want to add that value to the presentation, and I want to thank the presenter. They were quite, even though they don't have time, but they are quite impactful. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that's very important. A while ago, we had in one of our webinar series, and we're taking the success of Benin Textile integrated textile initiative as a case study, and we came down to some set of conclusions, and one of them was policy consistency. So we discovered that what we are seeing in Benin now today started about 30 years ago. Okay, so the government of the day 30 years ago set up that initiative, and then you see that subsequent governments that came in, they stuck to that particular policy, and so we are seeing what we are seeing today. So that's where policy consistency comes in. And then we also talked about another important factor, and that is an alignment between the public and the private sector in Benin Republic, and that's what brought in the giants like Arise to come in there and invest. So we see that some of these things are actually very important, and it's key that we have some of these takeaway as we are leaving this conversation. So I will now take the question from Fidel, and I think that is actually directed to just a minute. Okay, yeah, so it says the question is for Dr. Dalia, and it says, thank you for the presentation. While trade agreements create market opportunities, many SMEs still struggle to take advantage of them due to limited access to finance, weak productive capacity, and underdeveloped value chains. He said, how can policymakers, financial institutions, and development partners bridge this gap to ensure that SMEs are not merely included in trade agreements on paper, but are genuinely able to compete and benefit in practice?
Okay, thank you so much, Hidel, for your question. To answer your question, I'll give you a very nice example that we worked on in the last project, the last development project that was directly related to trade and to SMEs. We thought of the ecosystem of the trade as three layers. You have the policymakers layer and the trade facilitation, where what's the country is doing regarding customs policy, industrial policies, trade facilitation for fees and charges for import and export. Because if you are an exporter, you are basically a manufacturer. You need to have access to proper raw materials without problems in customs and long time to get your raw materials and things like that. So we thought of the ecosystem at large, and we started addressing the ecosystem, studying the fees and charges, the business process, and we did like some business process analysis where we looked at like what's a manufacturer importing and exporting importing raw materials and exporting finished goods. What do they sort of problems do they have? And this is the role of the policy makers, and we try to affect or work on this layer. The second layer was the trade support institutions and the trade finance institutions. For the trade finance institutions like the banks, we encouraged banks on having meetings with small and medium enterprises, talking to them about what sort of trade finance products that would work for them, that would help them and support them to export more. For the trade support institutions, we needed them to think how not only to run around looking for trade missions, exhibitions, and things like that, because this is the export promotion part of the industry, but there is the export development. How you get your companies ready, how to help them build their capacity to be competitive in the global market. And this is an essential role for the trade support institutions. And then as a development project, we worked directly with a group of SMEs that were like, we had like very strict criteria to select them and go from point A to point B with support in the certification, in the skills and the training of their personnel. We helped them to be ready to be in exhibitions and trade missions. So we think of it as like different layers. It's not one single thing that you would do and a country will be better in exporting. That's it.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so I do believe that we've sort of exhausted the questions in the chat. I do have a couple of my own questions from for each speaker, but before I take those. So we did talk earlier about how you can get access to some of this presentation material. So my colleague Favor will be sharing the link to our WhatsApp community. So at the Africa Cotton, Textile and Apparel Center, we have a WhatsApp community where you are able to access all of the materials for this particular session and our previous sessions as well. So Favor, please go ahead to drop that WhatsApp, the group community link in the chat, so everyone can begin to join, and at the end of the day, we make those materials available and accessible to you. Thank you. Okay, so barring any other question from the participant, I have just one question each for each speaker, and I would like Nora to go first. And my question will be that so earlier this year, I think sometime around last month in May, we were in Togo for the Biashara Africa event. So it's an AFCFTA annual event, and it was the third series, the third in the series. And then something important struck me there that we could see, it was the first time I would attend, but we could see that the conversation of AFCFTA has actually moved beyond just having this deliberations and putting down these policies, and what we saw, the key takeaway particular event, we have actually gone into, we have actually stepped into to some of these policies. So now, looking beyond where we are today, that is to say, if we're able to successfully close the value chain gap, that please mute everyone. Please mute everyone. Thank you. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Thank you. So the question is, if we're able to successfully close the value chain gap that you mentioned, you talked about so much of this value chain leakage and all of that. If we're able to close this value chain gap over the next, say, 5 to 10 years, what would the cotton, textile, and apparel sector in Africa look like? And how different will its role be in global trade compared to where and how it is today? Can I take that again, or is that clear? You're still muted. You're still muted.
Hear me now?
Yes, correctly.
Okay, so it should be work for all the African countries, and we should work on a short, medium, and long-term plans to make the regional sourcing commercially easier than importing from Asia. So for the short-term plan, I think that the first thing that we should work on is map the existing manufacturing capacities across Africa, because I think that we don't know the actual manufacturing capabilities for the African factories. So I think it will be very important to conduct like a directory for all the companies and factories operating all over the African continent. And then we have to create an African textile supplier database, and this will give us more understanding about the weakness and the strength point in each country. So this will help us to move forward for the regional integration activities. So, for example, I believe that we can build a complementary regional value chain instead of competing industries. So we can assign regional manufacturing rules rather than every country investing in every production stage. So, for example, while searching for the actual capabilities of the different countries and regions across Africa, we can see that Egypt, for example, is well known for the long staple cotton, the spinning and the technical textiles. So I believe that Egypt should focus on strengthening this point. And for example, West Africa, they are well known for the cotton production and ginning. So they should focus on the restructure and improving this point. And the same, for example, for North Africa, they should specialize in the high value garment and export to Europe. So together we know the strengths and weakness of each, and to focus our investment what Egypt did in the public sector project. In the past, they were like more than 30 affiliates working in the textiles public sector in Egypt, and surprisingly that they were competing with each other. So the buyer can benefit from the competition of the companies operating under the Egyptian textile public sector. So he can reach to a very low price because the Egyptian factories are competitors. And this is the case now in the whole African country. So we should be like successful partners more than competitors for a more regional integration in this part. So each country and each region should specialize in specific parts along the textile value chain, so we can source entirely from each other, and this will result in decreasing the high dependency from imports from Asia and Europe, for example. No, in this case, we will depend on each other within the continent, and making so every region should have its USP or the unique selling proposition, so we can complement each other, and also we should develop regional textile corridors, as Dr. Dalia said in her previous session. So we should focus on the building a more modern infrastructure of customs and warehousing instead of building only new factories everywhere. So if we apply these approaches, I think this will help to a more integration in the global textile value chain, and will reflect on the and the reputation of the African textile. So yet Africa remains represented in the global textile manufacturing because market access alone doesn't create industrial competitiveness. So paying tariffs, sustainable competitiveness require integrated regional value chain, modern industrial infrastructure, investment in the value addition, and also the skilled workforce, international certifications, and public-private collaboration and long-term industrial policies. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that elaborate strategy. So I had midterm strategy, I had a short term, and I had long term. And I think the key takeaway from that is that every region, focusing on their strengths. Okay, and I see that many of the participants also agree with that particular point. There's a response from there, a comment from there that says that is sort of what the vaccination industry is doing across Africa. So I think it's something that we can also implement in the textile industry. Thank you so much for that, Nuran. Okay, now Dr. Dalia. So yes, Dr. Dalia, a similar question to you as well, just one, and it's still around projecting forward, and we're saying if we were to reconvene, so today being the 25th of June 2026, if we were to reconvene on the 25th of June, say 2031, that's in 5 years time, okay, and assess whether we have actually been able to convert our market access into export growth, what would you say would need to change between now and then, and what would success actually look like for us on this particular day in 2031? Thank you.
Thank you. What I would focus on is like we people who work in research, policy making, trade facilitation in government institutions, trade support institutions, we need to listen very well to this community. We need to listen very well to the manufacturers who made it. Like, just to give you a quick example, I don't want to take more of everybody's time, but we were working on a study in one of the African countries for a textile park, and it's a very project, and
Is doing very well on the continent. So please, if you can, turn on your camera for just 5 seconds. Thank you. Let's do that quickly. Let's do that quickly. Don't be camera shy. Don't be camera shy. Let's do that quickly. Okay, I'm still seeing just myself and Dr. Dalia. Okay, are we camera shy? Okay, okay, so Favor, would you go ahead to do that? Please let me know when that is done. Okay, great. I think we've had a shot. We do hope that we can be less camera shy in the future. Thank you so much. Okay, then. So on behalf of the Africa CTA Center, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to our speakers, our partners, and all participants for contributing to today's conversation. The discussion has been very insightful, has been very valuable. Okay, who is saying something? Who wants to say something? Somebody's trying to say something? Okay. Thank you for the applause. Thank you for the applause. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you to our next webinar. Please join the WhatsApp community now, and then you have access to all of the presentation materials from this particular session, and of course the previous sessions that we've had over the years. Thank you so much once again. Thank you, Dr. Dalia. Thank you, Nuran. Thank you, Mukhtar. I saw you, Mukhtar. I saw Sylvester Kazi. I saw you. I saw Chantel Strauss. Is that Sylvester?
Yeah, it's me actually. I had some challenges with the internet. Hi guys, and I
Hi.
came to join a
Hi.
little bit later. So, but
It's
at least
okay. It's okay. It's
yeah.
okay. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Omolara Akoji, thank you. Thank you. Kenny Harrison. Thank you, Jack Otieno. Eugene, Judith, Simon is here as well. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Namwadi. I appreciate every one of you. Amachundi, Fidel, Hadija, Thula, Felicity. Yes, Felicity, Eugene, Noran, Fidel. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope to see you on the next one. Bye for now. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you, everyone.